Hello and welcome. If you've ever felt like your social battery drains way faster than your phone's, or you just prefer a few really deep friendships over a whole sea of acquaintances, then this is definitely for you. Okay, let's dive right into the psychology of why some of us keep that inner circle extremely small. So here's the big question. We're constantly told that being a social butterfly is the goal, right? Having this massive network, a calendar just packed with events. But what if having a small, tight-knit circle isn't some kind of social flaw? What if it's actually a highly evolved strategy? That's really the core of what we're going to explore. First up, we have to talk about what I call the myth of more. It's this idea that's everywhere in our society, that having a ton of connections automatically means your social life is better, richer. But as we're about to see, for a lot of people, that idea just completely misses the point. This is probably the one you've heard the most. It's so frustrating. The person who'd rather stay home on a Friday night or just can't stand big parties gets this label slapped on them. Antisocial. But honestly, that label is almost always wrong. So let's just completely reframe this. It is so rarely about a dislike of people. It's really about having a strong preference for a certain kind of interaction. It's all about choosing depth and real meaning over just, surface level chit-chat. And this right here gets to the heart of it. The big misconception is this blanket idea that you hate people, but the reality, it's usually a hatred of small talk. For some people, that surface-level chat about the weather, it just feels like a dead end. What they're craving is a real conversation, one with layers, with big ideas, with a genuine connection. This leads to a really crucial point. Choosing to be alone isn't always about retreating from other people. A lot of the time, it's about moving towards yourself. It's this active process of recharging your batteries, processing your thoughts, and just finding some clarity away from all the noise. All right, on to the next big myth. This is the idea that if you need downtime or if you just have a smaller social capacity, that it's some kind of weakness, that you're shy or there's some character flaw. This one just completely misunderstands what's actually going on with our social energy. So let's look at this from a totally different angle. Instead of weakness, think of it as strategic energy management. For so many of us, social energy isn't some infinite well we can just keep dipping into. No, it's a finite resource, and it needs to be spent wisely. And there's actually a name for this whole experience: social burnout. It's that deep, profound feeling of being completely drained, not just tired, but drained after too much socializing. And seeing it defined like this, it just validates that what you're feeling is real. It has a cause. So, what's causing this burnout? Well, it can be a whole mix of things. Maybe it's the emotional weight of always being the strong friend, the one everyone comes to, or the nonstop pressure to keep up a perfect image online. Sometimes it's a learned belief that you're only loved when you're useful. And yeah, sometimes it's just the sheer exhaustion of having to perform all the time. This chart just visualizes that strategy perfectly. Someone with a small circle isn't antisocial. They are a smart investor of their social energy. The huge majority, like 70%, goes to those few, deep, high-trust relationships where they can finally be their authentic selves. Then a smaller piece of the pie is budgeted for the necessary stuff, like work small talk. And that tiny sliver left, that's for any kind of public-facing persona. It's all about priorities. Now, this careful way of handing out energy and trust, it doesn't just appear out of thin air. For a lot of people, it's an architecture that's been carefully built over a lifetime of experiences, and it often starts really, really early. You can actually see how it develops step by step. It might start in your formative years, where support just felt inconsistent, unreliable. From there, you learn a core lesson. The safest bet is to just rely on yourself. This isn't arrogance, not at all. It's a protective shield called survival independence. And the logical result of that? Trust becomes this incredibly precious thing, something you don't just give away. And that's the absolute key here. When someone with this kind of background hates asking for help, it has nothing to do with ego or pride. It's this quiet, deeply ingrained fear that if they reach out, nobody's going to be there. It feels way too vulnerable, way too risky. So when you put all of this together, it becomes pretty clear that we need a whole new definition of what it means to be social. It shouldn't be about trying to conform to some extroverted ideal. It should be about consciously building a social life that actually fits you, one that energizes you instead of draining you. If there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's this right here. A small inner circle is not a sign that something is missing. It's not empty, it's concentrated. It's a deliberate choice to go deep, to invest in a few connections that offer real substance and real support. So I'll just leave you with this final thought. In a culture that is so obsessed with follower counts and how big our networks are, maybe the much more important question is this one. What do your connections actually count for? What kind of value and depth and realness do they bring to your life? Thanks so much for joining me.